While trying to broaden my horizons on the JRPG genre, there was a ton of series and games I've never seen, heard, or even played before. As I'm fairly new to the space, I had a lot of games, and still do, at my disposal to experience for the first time. And as I was just scrolling the PlayStation Store like anyone else who's bored does, I came across Nier Automata, and I immediately got my attention grabbed because it sounded familiar. This is a very popular and critically acclaimed game, and seeing it was in the genre I wanted to dive more into, I seen it as a no-brainer to get. First I thought it would make more sense to start at the beginning of the series, so I did a quick search and found Nier Replicant. I also understand Drakengard being part of the series, but seeing it's not on PlayStation, I can't really play it. Or at least it's somewhat part of the Nier universe, as Drakengard 3's ending is part of Nier Replicant's beginning. Something like that, I don't know. I've only played Replicant and I can tell how much of a rabbit hole these games are. But anyways, back to Replicant. Being my first experience with a Yoko Taro game, I didn't really know what to expect at all. This was literally me just diving in blindfolded essentially. And after playing Replicant to its brink, achieving all 5 endings, looking up the lore and listening to what other people had to say about this mind-boggle of a game, I think I understand what Nier Replicant was trying to do. To deceive you. Because when I look at this game as a whole, and I look at every single big moment that makes this game's story up, there's always some sort of deception that the game is slowly painting into the player's mind. My idea for this video is to not only tell the story of Replicant, but give out why its deceitful nature works so well. The story has so many layers to peel back, so I hope I can do it justice. But with all that being said, let's get into the video. When you first load up Replicant, the intro scene is this boy and his sister, seemingly near life's end, struggling to hold on as there's this world-ending storm going on. They have no food, no water, no anything, just each other, and this mysterious black book. The world is being set already. We get the feeling of despair in the air. The feeling of hopelessness huddles around the environment as well as the player. As the boy finally awakes from his sleep, he's then attacked by these vile, almost see-through black creatures. As the boy attempts to fight them off, he's not strong enough, and as you need more strength to fight, you go to the black book as a last resort. And that scene right there, the whole intro as a matter of fact, the 5 minutes of this intro are the deception seeds that the devs want you to fall into. And you're probably thinking, how? Why? And what made you come to that conclusion? When I think about the art of deception, I think of taking whatever idea you're trying to push onto a consumer. I think of doing it in ways that casually build up over time. Maybe like a snowball effect, for example. And I say that because it's much easier for someone to be deceived when they slowly start being reeled into an idea. Because think about it, you see these 2 helpless children on the brink of death, and what you do is automatically feel for them. You want them to succeed and overcome this disaster. It's all falling into Nier's idea of being deceitful. And it's deceit because once you know what comes out of these characters in this exact scene, you realize why the game did what it did. They give you a look back on these characters because they want you to be able to look back on the scene and make you question your decisions after the game's big reveal. They intentionally added this mini intro because it helped with the narrative, but they had no plans to actually give context to it. This is an example of deception that I'll call cover, which in my mind is an act of hiding the truth, but not exactly lying. Deception in plain sight, you can even say. They intentionally hid the context of these characters and the real truth behind this scene until the very end of the game because of the overarching narrative they wanted to push. It's honestly genius, really. One of the best things about this game is the angles it takes to deceive the player. That's why this game is not only so mind-boggling, but so amazing in the same right. As we fast forwarded past that scene, we meet Nier, the protagonist of this game. He's a cheerful young man that carries a smile with him everywhere, always willing to help out those in the times of need. And of course we have his sister, Yona, who carries a disease with her, known as the Black Scrawl. It's Nier's mission to help cure that disease for his sister. And while trying to cure this deadly disease, you get a lead from Popola and Devola, the two prominent residents of the village that Nier lives in. They tell Nier about the song Devola sings is about being able to cure that disease, which is awesome, right? A white book collecting these sealed verses and then slaying the black book to cure the black scroll. And as you go on this journey to be able to hopefully cure your sister's deadly disease, you realize that the game isn't what it seems to be at all. You end up meeting the white book of the tale at their lost shrine, as you went looking for Yona, as it seems that she ran away, looking for the legendary lunar tear. The white book is named Grimoire Vice, and he then accompanies you on your journey with no questions asked, as he lost his memories while Nier kept smacking him around. You and Grimoire Vice end up going around the world of Nier in search of these sealed verses now, and we meet the likes of Kaine, Emil, the Facade people, the Airy people, the people of the Lost Woods, etc. And while really exploring this world of Nier Replicant, something is very apparent. Not only, like I said earlier, something obviously very wrong here, but the world seems dead. Like there's this overwhelming fog of unknownness, creeping on you every time you enter a new area. The world isn't what it seems. And if we go back to the intro scene, the scene that was 1500 years ago, it's funny how that ended up transitioning into a regular world. What happened in that time frame? And throughout this entire journey of searching for these sealed verses, Nier or anyone else of the group didn't really question the likes of Popola and Devola's tale. They just took their word for it, and as a result, I believe the player did as well. I know I did for the most part. And one of the reasons being is because, well, what else did they have to go off of? There was never been any idea on how to cure this black scroll disease. It's an incurable disease at this point in the game, so the crew isn't going to question it when they have no leads to begin with. Another one of the reasons I believed at the time as well was because of Nier's personality, which is such an underrated thing that the game did to try and deceive you. Nier himself isn't deceitful, but the personality that the game gave him is. I think they made Nier intentionally this happy-go-lucky person who was honestly just kind of gullible, and that rubs off on the player. Of course the player is going to have questions about some scenes and actions that happen in the game, but the devs use Nier as a beacon of hope almost. I mean, the dude is just so happy all the time. It's hard not to want to root for him and believe the things he's being told, because you want to see him win. Which again feeds into the idea of deception that the game is pushing. It's a great angle that the game pushes onto you. And maybe I'm just reaching with this thought, but I genuinely believe that the game made him this way for a reason. Because are you as a player going to connect with somebody who's not positive? And I don't mean someone who's not positive as in they're depressed or whatever. I mean somebody who's just generally an ignorant person. Someone who's rude and doesn't have good intentions. You're probably not going to connect with that person. So when you see Nier happy as ever going to save his sister, you're not going to question whether what he's been told is right or wrong. Deception at its finest. But like this game has been up to this point, nothing, of course, is as it seems. As the group finally collected all the verses, all of a sudden Nier's village is now under attack by a mob of shadows. As Nier and Kaine defend the village, they end up being pushed back into the library, where Nier has to fend off a bigger shade. All of a sudden, the Shadowlord appears, bearing similar appearances to Nier and stealing Yona from the group, with no explanation as to why. And in the same process, the Black Book of the tale, and of the intro scene all those years ago, is now side by side with the Shadowlord. Grimoire Noir is the book's name, just as we are side by side with the White Book, Grimoire Vice. Almost as to signify a mirror image of Nier's current self. They both look very similar to one another, and they have a book of the tale. While both are prioritizing Yona, I think it's the game's way of trying to show that even though these characters are vastly different, they are similar in some ways as well. And while Nier is fending off the shades and the Shadowlord, Vice is then put into a trance, seemingly being controlled by the Black Book. But instead of just killing Vice, which he had all the power to do so, he asked Vice a very specific question that nobody expected. Noir is telling Vice of their true purposes, of the biggest revelation in the entire games. Noir is seemingly telling us that him and Vice are supposed to be as one, and that the collection of the sealed verses was planned by the Shadowlord himself. But of course we have no reason to believe the bad guys, right? He can just be telling a lie, as this game is all about being deceived. But let's think about it for a second. There might not be any proof to back any of this up, but is there any proof of Devola and Popola's tale being real either? And also, where are the two twins at this time? If what Noir said is being true, it would make sense as to why they aren't here helping us right now. But whether you believe Noir or not, two more questions still remain. Who is the Shadowlord? And what's his purpose in all of this? But at this point, the Shadowlord ends up fleeing with Yona. The group essentially left for dead as we were impaled and barely clinging on to life. Kane was petrified by Emil because of her shade was taking over, and Emil not sure what to do about either situation. Another time skip, but this time a more manageable one, as 5 years pass since that horrible day. Nier has grown into a man now, and Vice still at his side, but Nier seems different. This once go-happy-lucky kid is now much more of a serious, toned, merciless man. Seeing what the Shades did to him and his loved ones, it changed him. For better or for worse, who knows? Remember what I said previously about how Younger's Nier personality isn't necessarily deceitful to itself? But I believe the same with his new personality. He's obviously changed his ways of thinking because of the traumatic experience he had, and the game does this as a perfect separator between the two parts. Younger Nier being all about rainbows and sunshines, and not questioning whether what he was doing in regards to the Song of the Ancients is even correct, but now into someone with a lot more questions about the world that he lives in. Because now knowing a bit more of the situation itself, our thoughts can change just as Nier's did. We now question the things we were taught to know, but Nier himself seems a lot more intimate on killing Shades now more than ever. As for the rest of the group, Kane is still petrified after all this time, and Emil still needs his eyes healed. And in order to save Kane, we have to save Emil first. Now, as I don't intend on hitting every single bit of detail that this game has to offer about its message of deceit, I will go over the most important things to me, such as Project Gestalt, the replicants, and all of the other stuff. But if you have been enjoying this video this far, I would appreciate it if you could leave a thumbs up if you enjoy my type of analysis type of content, as it would help out my channel a lot, or even subscribe. Thank you, and back to the video. As we are now in the depths of Emil's mansion, now finally looking for a way to heal his eyes and Kane, it's made very apparent that there is a higher power we're dealing with in this world. Not the Shadowlord or Grim Noir or any of that jazz, but humans. As we traverse the depths of the mansion, we find that this isn't just some underground bunker, but a lab that held experiments, on children specifically. Experiments that were not only conducted with the hopes of no one knowing, but experiments that resulted in casualties as well. This aligns with some deceit of this game, and I'll tell you why. This whole time we were under the assumption that the Shades, the Shadowlord, and Noir were essentially the main focus of this game's villainry. But now with this newly found information on how children were essentially being experimented on against their will, just to make some ultimate weapon, it's very clear that there's more than just the Shades we're dealing with here. We were made to believe through Nier's eyes that the Shades and the Shadowlord are the main focus when it comes to this game. But the fact that there was human beings being experimented on, with no intentions of letting anyone know, it's eye-opening. As we finally get Emil's eyes cleared and save Kane, we now have more whereabouts on the Shadowlord. The Lost Shrine. It's connected to his lair. At least that's what Popola told us. Fast forward to the group collecting all of the fragments and pieces to open up the Lost Shrine, finally able to encounter the Shadowlord himself. As the group enters, it seems like some sort of holy place. White everywhere with the legendary white flower everywhere as well. But as they progress, they are met with unfortunate circumstances, as well as deceit itself. Devola and Popola await the group ahead. As this game has a tendency to do, it flips the script completely. The two girls of the village who guided Nier throughout this entire journey are now fighting him, with no true answer as to why as of right now. But they do say something about Vice himself. He's a traitor. A traitor? But what for? Didn't Devola and Popola mention that the Song of the Ancients is about the white book killing the black book? And as far as I can tell, that's what we came here to do. But it seems like Popola and Devola were pulling the strings as we are the puppets. As you meet Devola and Popola for the final time, they don't waste any time on announcing what they, and you, really are. They announce the Project Gestalt, the idea of saving humanity from the brink of extinction. And in order to do so, the humans at the time had to create shells of current humans, attempting to shift souls from the human bodies to the shells. We aren't human. Nier, Kaine, Emil are shells made by humans, and the real humans are the Shades. The ones we've been fighting this entire time. The enemies that this game wanted us to believe are the bad guys this whole time are really just humans. I keep going back to the cutscene at the beginning of the game, but it is so important to this story. Straight up deception, and there's no other way to put it. This makes you question everything the game put you through. This isn't just some instance of the last ditch effort, but for Popola and Devola to try and deceive the player. This is the cold hard truth. The files that she gives us. The reaction of Vice to this information. The fact that they are truly ready to fight what they believe in. It's all true. And the truth just gets worse from here. After the defeat of Devola and Popola and Emil's sudden sacrifice, Nier and Kaine head to the Shadowlord's room, where Yona sleeps. But just as everything else in this game, it's not what it seems. The Shadowlord seemingly protecting Yona, cherishing her. He has no bad bloods towards her and seems like he actually has some emotion. Fight is on. The Shadowlord mumbling words that we don't understand, but it's clear that he's here to protect Yona, as you are here to take her back. Halfway through the fight, the biggest level of deceit happens. Yona, as you see her, walks towards you, but then passes, right on to the Shadowlord, telling him that she doesn't want to be in someone else's body. She can hear our Yona in there, missing Nier. And at that moment, it all clicked. From the very beginning, we were made aware of the other Nier and Yona, but they aren't just another. That's us. Again and again, I go back to this cutscene, but it's so important to the story. Those two were recipients of the Gestalt. That's why Nier back then didn't want to touch that book, because he knew what it would do. And that's why there was a time skip of 1500 years, and suddenly we were just okay. That Nier from back then became the Shadowlord, and he wanted to save the Yona from back then. That's why it makes sense why Nier was just okay after 1500 years. He's a replicant. And in order for the Shadowlord to save his Yona, he needed a body, hence the Gestalt project, and the perfect shell for his sister to come back, our sister, Replicant Yona. And in doing all of this, the Shadowlord was doing what he thought was right for the world. This Project Gestalt isn't just some maniac evil plan. It was made to save humanity, but in Nier's eyes, his world would be saved if he were to stop the Shadowlord. The clashing of the two Niers, once together but in the process of becoming a replicant, our Nier gained sentience. He gained his own sense of what is right and wrong, and in defeating the Shadowlord, the Gestalt project will become to an end, and humanity will play out as it has for the last 1500 years. Yona from back then fades away, giving Replicant Yona her shell back. There is no right or wrong in this situation. There is no evil. There's no malicious intent from either side. The replicants gaining sentience wasn't in the plans of the Gestalt. Neither Nier knew that, and in the end, they made decisions that they thought was the right one. That is the deceit of Nier Replicant. This game's ability to make you believe something, make you tag along with the game's story of deception is so amazing. You now question what you fought for. Was this all in vain? Did you do the right thing? Is our Nier evil, or did he do the right thing? What a roller coaster of information we get. This entire time we were made to believe that the Shades and the Shadowlord are some mass evil that we have to kill. But in reality, they were doing what they thought was right to help humanity. And in time, the shells that we were made from, the Gestalt project, gained sentience. Hence why the Nier we play as has emotions of his own without the Shadowlord inside of him. The idea that everything you committed your life to was all for naught. I think The Ashes of Dreams is such a beautiful ballad for the game's end. Not only is it a beautiful vocal performance, but the lyrics all but entail the story and deceit of Nier Replicant. This game was such a beautiful experience. It's mind-boggling in every single way possible. Being fairly new to this genre of game in general, I think this was a great piece to really dive myself into. They cooked up an amazing gem with this one. Of all those things I've heard about Automata, I'm fairly excited and nervous to see what else is in store with the Nier series. Also, side note, I'm aware of all endings of this game and I have completed all of them, but I think the idea of deceit is very much the most present in ending A, as all the other endings are more in-depth pieces of the journey. Great endings and I really enjoyed getting all of them, but I don't think they fit in this video in particular. If I'm wrong, just let me know. I thank everyone who sat through this video. And if you thought this video was good, why not leave a like? And if you're interested to see my experience with games of the RPG genre, why not subscribe as well? I plan to keep doing analysis type of content with a ton of other games and series. Well, that's all for me. Thank you everybody for watching, and goodbye.